13, mission type orders, the problem of control. In World War II, those who served in armored divisions and probably in other units as well learned that mission type orders were a requirement if the most was to be obtained from a command. Since then, we have had, and mission type, so what mission types orders are, just in a nutshell, is you tell somebody what needs to happen and you let them go figure out how to do it. It's the basis of decentralized command. Since then, we've had to consider the control of operations in the fluidity and unpredictability of nuclear battle. As battle becomes more complex and unpredictable, responsibilities must be more and more decentralized. Thus, mission-type orders often will be used at all echelons of command and probably will be the rule at the division and higher levels. This will require all commanders to exercise initiative, resourcefulness, and imagination, operating with relative freedom of action. And this is what's weird. You know, he oscillates between these sort of like, everyone should be, you know, how do we control the men? And he literally says in that earlier chapter, the middle group is easier to control. And now he's saying, hey, you need to let them go and operate. And it's really scary. I thought he was going to start talking about nuclear war. What do you, when you think about nuclear war, I think centralized control. I want 17 people to make sure that that is the right move before that freaking fire button gets hit and those two keys get simultaneously turned. But he's like, no, decentralized command. That's pretty scary to me. In our tactical forces, we have built-in organizational flexibility. We must recognize this and capitalize it in our orders. To get maximum combat power, we must have plans flexible enough to meet rapidly changing situations. But careful planning is not enough. This must be coupled with the readiness to change and adapt to situations as they are, not as they are expected to be. Awesome. What's interesting about that is he says we need to make plans flexible enough to meet rapidly changing situations. And he says, but careful planning is not enough. When I think of careful planning, I think, oh, this guy's going to sit there and plan every detail. I don't think of somebody that's thinking, hey, we're going to come up with a very flexible plan. A flexible plan to me is not careful planning. I guess I might be reading too much into that, but I always felt like I cheated all the time because I came up with flexible plans for things.
Yeah, it seems like a carefully plan or a plan carefully is like you carefully plan for like contingencies or whatever.
I guess carefully planned doesn't necessarily need to be like overly detailed. In fact, carefully planned could be like, hey, we want to be careful that we don't put too much detail in here. And then, yes, being able to adapt to situations as they are, not as they were expected to be. That's a critical way to operate. To train commanders and staff officers for operations in war where mission type orders will be widely used, it is necessary that tactical courses in our schools teach the use of such orders and that we widely employ mission type orders in our peacetime operations. I love that. So when you're going to give people assignments to clean up the building, you don't say you mop and you scrub and you clean and you go. No, you say, hey, I want the building clean. This is what time it needs to be done by, and you let them go execute it. Boom. Decentralized command mission type order. And think about that. I just kind of blew that off, but that's a real thing. Like, if you don't train people and you don't live like this, then you won't get good at it. You have to actually live like this. This has to be your way of life. If the way that you run your day-to-day operations is micromanagement, how can you expect anybody to do anything other than be micromanaged when you get into a bad situation, get into a combat situation?
You said something really solid on EF Online that I was exposed to when you were like, hey, when you're in a meeting or you're having a meeting or something and everyone's there with their pen and paper waiting for you to say something, to write stuff down. And then when you start talking, then they start writing stuff down or whatever.
It's a bad sign.
Yeah, it's a bad sign, but it feels good.
It feels good.
Because no one can do anything unless Big Jocko rolls in.
The man with the big ego and the plan. You're really a horrible leader if they're all sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
We got 2 or 3 questions. We already know what we're doing. We know where we're going.
Yeah.
We're good. Oh, this is beautiful. Scope of a mission type order. Basically, a mission type order needs to cover only 3 important things. 1, it should clearly state what the commander issuing the order wants to have accomplished. That's number 1. This is what you need to accomplish. Number 2, it should point out the limiting or control factors that must be observed for coordinating factors. So, okay, you can't go across this area, you can't fly over this region, you can't enter into this zone. Here's the limitations. And then finally, it should delineate the resources made available to the subordinate commander and the support which he can expect or count on from sources outside of his command. That's all you need to know. Tell me what to do, tell me what the limitations are, and tell me what resources I have. Other than that, leave me alone. I'm going to go make it happen. That might be the clearest definition of a mission type order I've ever read in my life. That's all you need. I got asked one time, I was in my first deployment to Iraq, and my boss is like, what information do you need and how much time do you need to launch on a mission? And I was like, I need to know where the location of the target, the frequencies of the friendly forces, and I need 15 minutes and we'll go. Yes. Confidence in subordinate commanders. There is a strong reluctance at every headquarters to relinquish the authority to direct the details of an operation. This reluctance is clearly seen in the embellishments added to an order as it threads its way down to company level. Careful judgment must be made at every echelon of command in stating the limiting and controlling factors of a mission type order. Confidence must be placed in judgment and ability of the subordinate commander. Too often, what starts off as a broad mission type order at the high echelon ends up with volumes of minute, detailed, and restricting instructions specifying how to get the job done when it finally gets down to company level. Many officers hearing this may think they would like to have a command functioning under such a system, meaning I would love it if people would just do exactly what I told them to do, but you don't want that. Others who may say they would like to work under such a system really are disturbed by thoughts of it. There are some officers who require something in writing before they will take significant action. A mission type order requires the subordinate commander and his staff to make basic decisions and plans based upon a careful analysis of the situation. If the basic decisions or plans are not successful, there is no paper foxhole into which they can crawl. Mission type orders require initiative, promptness, and resourcefulness, which are not always forthcoming. Problems in service schools based upon such orders bring forth a variety of solutions which are difficult for the faculty to grade, sometimes looms as a very important problem. What do you got?
Dude, there is so much there. You even gave this example of just cleaning the building. Just that little example of cleaning the building. The worst thing I can do as a leader is to tell you how to do that. Because the minute I tell you how, you know what you're going to do? Exactly what I told you. And I'm going to say this, and this. What are the chances I get it all as a leader? Zero, right? Zero. So what you're actually going to do is what I told you to do. But I'm going to miss a couple things. And actually the outcome is not going to be what I want. Then I as a leader, I'm going to go out and inspect him like, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And what happens is I trust you less. So I'm going to micromanage you even more, which means you have even less initiative the next time. And the connection from how to initiative, and what I wrote down was how. By me telling you how to do what I want you to do, and I'm not saying like teaching you how to do something. I'm telling you how I want it done. That's the how you're talking about. Of course I want to teach you how to do a task or a job. I need to train you. He's talking about, this is how I want you to do this task, which is totally different. That is the exact opposite of initiative. Because if I tell you how to do it, you're going to do exactly how I told you to do it. And then the things that I've missed, the things that I as a commander don't know because I'm farther away from the problem than you are, I'm going to trust you less because the outcome isn't going to be the way I want. I'm going to micromanage more. I'm going to undermine your initiative even more. And then when you're out there doing it on your own and I actually can't get to you, which is the connection from the training to the real world, which is why you have to live this all the time, that's when teams and organizations fail. Because I'm not going to be there to solve all these problems for you, but I've bred this in you the entire time because I'm always telling you how I want you to do it. And you're like, cool, I'll do exactly how you told me to do it. And I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You don't even know about this over here. I'm just not even touching that because you didn't tell me about that at all. But if you go the exact opposite, which was, hey, however you want to get this done, that's all good. What we need to get it done is by 1600 on Wednesday, because what happens at 1700 on Wednesday is this, and this, and impacts all that. Go make it happen. All of that is your initiative to go make that happen. Mm-hmm. Just the connection between me telling you how I want it done versus your initiative, and the inverse relationship between those two, and how often we see that done wrong.
Bro, that's so true. Like you ever drive with a micromanager, like direction giver, you know? Like, driving with you, you're just like, whatever, take this here, whatever kind of thing. And that's a good move. Even if I make wrong turns, whatever, you'll help or whatever, occasionally, and you'll help whatever. But you get in, you ever drive with somebody who's like, hey, don't be in this lane. This lane is like too slow or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, make this turn. It's got, like a micromanager, what do you call them? Well, front seat driver, back seat driver, whatever. That kind of person.
Yep.
Let's say it's your significant other. I'm not saying it's my significant other.
For a friend. Let's just hypothetically.
Hypothetically, yes. Someone who you drive with a lot is what I'm saying. So, and every time it's like, hey, we're going to go this route. Hey, get out of this lane, go in this lane. Okay, take this turn. Okay, it's coming out, like really kind of micromanaging your driving situation. Mm-hmm. After a while, you kind of get used to that.
Yeah, so, and now all of a sudden you're not paying attention. They go, wait a second, you were supposed to take that turn. You're like, oh, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, it's a weird subconscious almost.
Why didn't you tell me, Sarah, Charles?
It's a subconscious almost dependence now.
For sure,
totally.
That's 100% what it is.
Yeah,
that's 100%.
That's the initiative comment that connects to is like, I'm going to take no initiative because I'm.
You've been trained. To
exactly.
just wait to be told what to do.
Exactly right. So just like how you're saying, where now. If, let's say, I'm dependent on you to give me directions, you don't, the leader, whatever, he doesn't always get it right or whatever. I make the wrong call or you don't give me direction. We'll say you don't give me direction. I take no action. And then, of course, it's done wrong. Now you trust me less. And around we go, you know. So it's like,
and I micromanage you more and I stifle even more of your initiative.
Even more. Yeah, exactly right.
You know what's crazy about this? And Dave, you and I were talking about this before we pressed record. Is like, I basically think in commander's intent. Like I think the way my mind works, I think in end states, and everything else to me is just sort of this, almost like an annoyance of reality. And I'm so far, like when I want to do something, I'm so there that everything else is just sort of going to fall into place, and I'm not even thinking about it. Whether it's like when I'm starting to write a book, like I know what that book is. I know the end state. I know what it looks like. And now I just have to get those words out of my system when we're going to launch something. It's like, I already know what's going to happen. Even if you think about something as stupid as this podcast, of me being like, Echo, can you make a podcast? And you're like, well, let me go figure it out. You figure it out. I'm like, I care nothing. I care zero. You show up with what you could have shown up with a freaking a tape recorder, and I would have been like, okay, is that what we're doing? Sounds good. All right, we're good, because I know I know where this is going to go. I know where we're going, and so however we're going to get there, it's like an annoyance to me, and it's the annoyance of reality, because of where my mind is, what I'm thinking about, where we're going. And that's a positive thing for a couple reasons. Number one, if you're working for me, if you're making stuff happen, you're good to go. I mean, you could just make stuff happen. We're good. We're good. We're totally good. I'm never gonna bother you. Never gonna bother you. So that's rad. And then also the I'm not getting caught up in these details, which means that step that I take is gonna be a big one. It's going to be a big step. It's not going to be a little. I'm not going to take half measures. Yeah, we're going the distance. So I'm thinking and acting and kind of living in like a commander's intent kind of way.
Yeah, it's not kinda.
Yeah. For those of us that are inside that sphere, the byproduct of you as a leader thinking in outcomes and end states, if that's how you're thinking and leading your people, the natural reaction of the people around you is to fill in all those things to make sure that happens. And if you can take it a step further, as a leader, and also be comfortable with the other side of it, which is a phrase that you use all the time, which I love, which is, you got to expect those things to happen. Then it's no factor if exactly how you had this picture in your mind, you got a little detour, a little roadblock, little problem here. Hey, yeah, those things are going to happen. And we can solve those things too, using the exact same approach, which is if you have that attitude as a leader, when your people run into problems, they're not going to be panic stricken about what is the boss going to think. Because he's going to say, hey, look, I expect those things to happen. Those things are going to happen. And I'm going to end up solving that as well. And so if you can connect the idea of thinking in end states around your people and also letting your people know you're not going to fly off the handle and jump right in there and start to micromanage them when you get these little hiccups, these little deviations, because you actually in your mind, Jocko, haven't thought about all the things that happen between here and here. You don't really care what's going on in here. Cool, you go off cool. I expect those things to happen. But the minute you lay that all out, like all these 30 steps to get there and one doesn't go right and then you're involved in that, what that does to stifle your people makes it so much harder for them to get to your end state. So just combine the two of thinking in those end states and then letting your people solve those things along the way and not overreacting to the problems that occur as you're getting there, because things are messy. Those little things are messy, but...
By the way, if you're thinking about all those things in between, you're not even going to think about
the end state.
A bigger picture. Totally. You're going to be thinking like, hey, we need to move to this next ridgeline. You're not thinking about where you're going to end up in 2 days on this operation or where you're going to end up strategically in 3 months. You're not even thinking about that. You're thinking about, wait a second, there's an obstacle right in front of us. What are we going to do?
Totally.
And meanwhile, I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. I literally don't care. There's 19 different ways to solve that problem. Pick one of them and roll with it. And it didn't work and you got to try again. Cool. Whatever. I'm still over here. And guess where? I'm looking off in the distance. So we're good.
That's a good point. And maybe, I don't know, maybe in my experience, which is nothing, but in my experience is like underappreciated or whatever, like not flying off the handle when things go wrong. Like if you, like, you know, you're like, hey, but it's true though. Like people have this misconception of you, like, oh, what if Jocko gets mad at you for making this or doing that? The reality is you don't really get mad at mistakes, you know? No. Like you might tease me a little bit of whatever, but like you don't get mad. But what that does is, and when I was listening to you, Dave, say that and stuff, it made me remember, that's true. Like, I don't have a fear of making the wrong move if we both know where we're sort of going, you know?
Yeah, and guess what? That means you can move.
Exactly.
That means you can make 2, 3, 4, 7 moves. Yeah. You can make 7 moves, and you never had to talk to me. And 6 of them were right. 9 of them were right. 11 out of 12 were right. There was one wrong one. It set you back a half a move, and then you pressed forward, and it was no factor.
Right. If I was concerned that Jocko was going to get mad at me for, I don't know, what if I make the wrong decision on this? Like, should we do this or should I do this or should I not do this or whatever? But I'd be like,
you wouldn't be making decisions
all the time. Totally. Yeah, like, bro, it would work way worse.
Yeah, somebody quoted you on Twitter. It was like, a great way to not waste your people's time is to not make sure that you're the one that's making all the decisions for them.
Not make them reliant on you to make those decisions. Yeah. That's a great way to not waste their time.
Yes.
And the beauty of that is that they're going to get you to where you want to go faster.
For sure.
I think you're right about that.
For sure.